going to review the setup and basic moves we can make for the RhythmGrid assignment practice, which is really intended for us to practice composition, balance, asymmetrical and symmetrical balance, and playing with elements with basic shapes selected from found photography. I know that's a mouthful, but I'm going to set us up here and just review the methods that I shared in class. So here's an example of a finished RhythmGrid study, composition study in asymmetrical balance. And I used two photographs for this. I'm not going to recreate this exactly, but I'll show you how to set up your photographs to have matching resolution with the final format of your project, of your composition, how to set up the grid, and then how to make these selections and play with layers and cut, copy, paste, as well as play with the pixel distortion that we see here. So I'm going to begin by starting a new file. And we were working with a square format. So I have 10 by 10 inches at 300 resolution and RGB color mode. Create. I'm going to go ahead and set up my grid. So if I click on the words at the very top of the screen, Photoshop 2024, or if you're using a different one, it should still be there. And I go to Settings, Guidelines, Grid, and Slices, and open Preferences, and you can see all the tabs on the left too. So we're in the Guides and Grid Preferences. And I'm not going to change my guides, but if you wanted to change the color of your guides, sometimes it's helpful. I have a grid set, and I've got this bright green color. I'm going to make it maybe gray. And then I'm going to set my grid line to every 2 inches. I could do every 1 inch would be a grid line, so I'd know how that would match my inches. And if I wanted subdivisions, I could. You could have 0, or you could break up that inch in several ways. So this is kind of cool to be able to customize your grid. You can also change the line if you wanted a dashed line, dotted line, or a solid line. I'm going to work with a solid line at 2 inches and subdivisions of 2. So I'll end up with this when I click OK. Actually, it's not showing. I need to make that visible. So I go to my View menu up at the top here and say Show Grid so that I can see the grid that I set the preferences for. And so, of course, I can also turn that off, right? So if I ever want to preview my work without the grid, I just do the same thing. View, Show Grid. There's one other thing I want to set up here, and that is snap. I want to make sure that this is checked, the snap, here under View. And then I also want to see what I'm snapping to. So right now I have it set to everything that's possible. Guides, grid, and layers, and document bounds, meaning like the edge of the document. And that's just going to help us when we're moving things around. Things will sort of snap in place, and I'll show you that to the grid. Helpful for trying to create lots of alignment. I also have rulers turned on, and that's so I could drag down guides. With my rulers turned on, I can click on the ruler and I can drag a guide down, and as you can see, even the guide sort of snaps onto the grid. I can drag a guide this way or this way, and maybe that's where I want to create some key alignments or find my rule of thirds, break up my composition in different ways, find the middle, right? I could kind of put it in the middle so I know where I am at 5 inches and 5 inches. Okay, so my composition is set up. I've got a grid. I now need to bring in my other images. So I'm going to go File, Open, and I have these in a folder. I'm going to bring in, let's see, this one and this one. I hold Command to select both. open. Oh, I didn't mean to bring in this actually. So let me go back and open another one. This is what I meant to bring in. Here we go. So this watery thing and this jungle scene. And the one thing I need to do, and one thing I notice, is that the grid is really different. Like it's really tight on this one, a little looser on this one, but it doesn't match what's going on over here. So I need to make sure these are in the same resolution as my final composition. So I'm going to go to each image and check the image size. And to do that, I click Image, Image Size. And yeah, it's 83 inches by 55 inches, so that's really big. But I also noticed the resolution is only 72. So our composition is got a resolution of 300, so we want that to match. So what I do is I uncheck Resample, and that's going to keep my width, height, and resolution all linked together. So I'm really not changing anything, just rearranging the sort of the pixel dimension. So I will type in the resolution for 300, and then I notice that my width and height change. Now we're talking 20 inches by 13 inches. So that's better and more close to the format that we're working with. But the resolution matches our composition, so that's what we want. When I click OK, I'll notice that the grid feels a little bit more spacious, and so that's great. I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Image, image size. My resample's already unchecked. I'm going to change the resolution to 300. Click OK, and there we go. And so here's kind of the case where if I really wanted to use that grid, it's hard to see. So I might want to go back to my preferences, my settings, and change the grid color to something that's more visible. Did that help? A little bit. All right. So now we have our two source images, grid, setup, resolution, the same as our composition. Now we're ready to play by making some selections and bringing them over. And so the reason we have this grid is we could select along the grid if we wanted to. We could, and I'm wanting you to practice two things. So one is the rectangular marquee tool, or all of the marquee tools, I will say, as well as the polygonal lasso tool. So the marquee tools are going to give us our basic shapes, right? So if I wanted to bring over a strip of pool water, and I'm going to make that selection with my rectangular marquee tool. I'll use Command C on my keyboard to make a copy of that. And then I click over to my composition, and I will use my keyboard shortcut Command V to paste into place. I could also use the edit functions up here, copy and paste if I needed to. Okay, it looks like it's bigger than my composition, and that's cool. So I'm going to choose my move tool and then move this around a little bit. Maybe I can even change the size. So I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut of Command T. I could also go to Edit Transform, but Command T is free transform, and that gives me the opportunity to grab the handle and scale it down a little. Maybe I'm going to have it go all the way off and line up at this middle point. So it's going to click into place. Oh, I need to make it a little bit bigger to go off the edge. Okay, so I basically will just keep doing this. I'll grab some shapes, grab a few elements from the grid, copy, paste them over, and play with arrangement. And so with the same, working in the same resolution, it's nice that these grids will match up. So it's sort of a one-to-one connection. And maybe I'll go over to this one too, and I'll try with the elliptical grid to bring over some of this green, lush, jungly stuff. I'm going to use the grid differently here. I'm going to pull from the corner, and if I want an ellipse, I can let it sort of snap to the ellipse edges of the grid. If I want a circle, I'm going to hold the Shift key, and that will give me a perfect circle. And then I will Command C to copy, come over here, Command V to paste, and I just have some other elements now to play with. And I could work with my grid or off the grid, however I want to do that. So the goal is to sort of layer, bring a bunch of shapes and elements over, and layer these together, trying to work toward an interesting composition that has either a symmetrical or an asymmetrical balance. The one other marquee tool that I wanted you to experiment with is the single row or single column marquee tool. So I will do the single row, and then I'll show you both. A single row marquee tool is going to collect a single pixel in a row. So if I click anywhere on my composition, you see this little line of marching ants. That is a single pixel all the way across. I'm going to, again, copy, Command C, hop over to my composition and Command V, and I can't even see where it went. It's sort of invisible because it's just a single pixel. But while that's still selected, that layer 4 is what I just brought in, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command T to get that free transform function for myself. And I'm going to try to find the middle. I think that's the edge. I think this is the middle. And I'm going to hold the Shift key. So this is important. If I click it and drag, I'm going to scale up proportionally. But if I hold the Shift key, I'm going to just bring everything up. And so what it's doing is repeating that single row of pixel all the way up. And if you don't see anything, sometimes that happens where it doesn't give you a preview. You just have to click the check bar at the top, the check mark at the top, or hit the return key to see the final result. And so now I have this kind of cool abstract pixel distortion of the various shades and values, hues that were in my photograph. All right, I'm going to leave that there. Maybe I'll bring that down under here. I can start to get some overlapping going on in the center here. I quite like that. All right, what I like about working with the grid too is that when I'm moving elements around, it gives me these moments where it's like it's snapped halfway through the grid. Do you like that? And it gives me some alignments, and you can choose to sort of keep that or disregard that, but it's trying to help you. So let me show you the single column marquee tool, which works the same way, but just to repeat that process. I'm going to click Command D to deselect because I have something selected here. And now I'm going to click anywhere on my photograph. I have the little marching ant, the line that's vertical this time, and I'm going to Command C to copy, go to my composition, Command V to paste. Again, I have no idea where it is, I can't see it. But while I know that I'm on that layer, because that's my new layer, I'm going to touch Command T, which gives me my free transform tools, and hold the Shift key and click the middle where you have that little pulling it out icon, and then bring that out. And I'm just going to bring it out a little bit. I want a nice thin line to contrast that other thick line that I have there. Cool. I'm going to bring that over here. I'm working on an asymmetrical composition, so things are not equal on either sides and kind of an off-center casual look. Okay, one last selection that you could play with if you would like, and that is the polygonal lasso tool. So if you wanted to get not an ellipse, not a rectangle or square, not a circle, but you wanted, or a line, and you wanted to have a triangle or some other polygonal shape, and you could work with the grid or not, but I'm going to get like a nice even triangle here by clicking and sort of snapping to the points of my grid to grab a triangular shape of the water, copy paste. Maybe I'll drop that one down behind everything. Cool. I can also create some shapes that are less aligned with the grid. I can be a little more freeform and just grab a maybe a kind of wacky shape. I want to look for that little closing circle that pops up when I know I've closed my selection. So I'm gonna copy that, paste that over, see what that looks like. Oh, okay, cool. And put that into place. And then I can kind of play with the arrangement of these. Maybe I want something to go over something and under something else. So I can play with my layer arrangement in that way. Bring this up here. All right. So those are the basic moves. And I just want you to make some shapes from these photographs or your own photographs that you find. Bring it over, play with it, try to create an interesting composition with those elements. You could also bring in a solid background if you want, which there's a couple ways of doing that. I could go to my background layer and edit, fill, choose a color, and maybe I'll grab with my eyedropper tool a similar green to some of these so that my palette is somewhat related. Click OK or OK. I could also go to new adjustment layer, solid color, and then choose a color that way. Again, I can use my color picker. So do I like blue or do I like green? Maybe I'll work with green for right now. And if you wanted to, you could also make a new layer and work with those rectangular marquee tools or the elliptical marquee tools. And maybe make your own circle and fill that also with, maybe one of the colors that you're working with in the background. Do I want that in the center or not? I haven't decided. So yeah, you can play with it. Those are the moves. When you're done, obviously save along the way as well, as I have not been doing. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.